James Cameron Dunwaters would take his glass with him wherever he went. He used it to scope big game on his hunting trips, and he'd stare at the stars. He'd take his bottle with him too, Scotch whiskey under his own label, because Dunwaters believed that a man deserves some of the luxuries of life as he traveled the world over in the company of the rich and the regal. He was a man in search of excitement, fulfillment, and perfection. And he thought he'd found that on the shores of Okanagan Lake on the delta of Shorts Creek, a place he had to have because it looked so much like his home, Fintry, in Scotland. But it was untainted by any other hand. Here, he could create a society of his own design out of the wilderness. And he could afford it too, because he had inherited a fortune, hundreds of millions of dollars in today's terms, and he knew how to spend it. Today on Okanagan Pioneers and Places, we delve into the life of James Cameron Dunwaters, the man who came to be known as the Laird of Fintry. Welcome to Okanagan Pioneers and Places. Mike Roberts with Stan Sauerwein, our expert for the day, whose book, The Laird, is out. And when did you discover Dunwaters, the Laird of Fintry, for the first time?
May of 99.
And did he immediately explode on your screen as the kind of guy?
It's a story that you can't believe. Can't believe the story of this man. It's just the complexity of the man and the things that happened to him are just fascinating.
Let's go back to find out where his origins were. Scotland, obviously. Where in Scotland?
Strangely enough, a place called Fintry in Scotland, which is north of Glasgow, about 16 miles north of Glasgow. And he inherited from his family the Coleridge Estates, which was the old Duke of Montrose's property there, with Coleridge Castle and a variety of other farms in the area. When he was 3 years old, his father acquired the inheritance for the property, and when he was 21, it finally passed on to him. His name at that time was Waters, and he had to accept the name of his benefactor, Dunn, as part of his name. So he changed his name to Dunn-Waters in order to get the inheritance.
James Cameron Dunwaters.
That's right.
He was famed. We have him here with the hounds. These are the Shropshire hounds?
When he was 21, he was living a fancy-free life. He was one of the richer men in Scotland. He was part owner of the Glasgow Herald. He owned the Outram Press. He owned the Coleridge Estates. And he decided that he wanted to move to warmer climes, so he moved into the southern part of England, to Shropshire, and he took up fox hunting. And he was so good at it that the Shropshire Hunt named him the Master of the Hounds, and it's a lifelong title.
And here we have a portrait of him. He's wearing his riding gear. Now, I think of him as a huge man somehow, but he's very thin, he's wiry, he's athletic.
He was wiry, athletic. He won medals in Cambridge for his rowing and his running. He was less than 6 feet tall, very wiry, but he used his strength at every opportunity he could out in the outdoors, so he kept himself very fit.
What does he do? I mean, what does a 21-year-old for years do when you just don't have to work?
Well, you know, he enjoyed so much the outdoors that he would have meetings with the Outram Press people and the board of directors, and then he'd traipse off to whatever continent he wanted to go to do big game hunting. He went to Africa and different parts of India. He went to Australia. He went where his heart took him, and shot game, fished, did whatever he pleased.
True Renaissance man. He was well schooled and had an interest in everything.
Well, he was well schooled at Cambridge. There are no, he wasn't special in his academic history, but he was athletically, had prowess athletically.
When did he discover Canada?
When he was 43, he had decided to come to Canada to visit with the Governor General, Lord Earl Grey, And Gray had a fruit ranch in the Kootenays, and he wanted to go hunting with Gray in the Kootenays. And he came here with him, and Gray had mentioned the fact that the Okanagan had a gateway to bighorn, to mountain goats, and he decided that he wanted to come out to take a look. So he jumped on one of the ferries, one of the boats that was on the lake, and they cruised by Fintry, and he fell in love.
Right that moment.
Right that moment.
It spoke to him of his home in Scotland.
It looks so much like Fintry in Scotland, it's almost spooky.
It's 1908, and does he act on his love for this country immediately?
The minute he gets off the boat, he inquires as to who owns it, and he learns it's a retired captain in Victoria, who happens to be the son-in-law, the daughter of the Lieutenant Governor, Dunsmuir. And he is too shy to inquire himself, so he hires someone to make a few inquiries for him, and Bertie Audain needs the money, so she decides to sell the property right away.
How much money?
He paid $22,500 for it in 1908.
For about, well, how many acres was that? Was that the whole delta?
No, at that point in time, the delta was split up into 3 or 4 different district lots. And what he bought was about 126 acres for $22,500.
That's huge money in those days.
Oh, it's huge money.
All right, going to take a break here. It's 1908 and 1909, and Dunwaters now owns Fintry. What's he going to do with it? We'll talk about that after this break. Welcome back to Okanagan Pioneers and Places. Mike Roberts with Stan Sauerwein, talking about the remarkable man that's known as the Laird of Fintry, and we'll eventually get to a title for him, Captain James Dunwaters. He gets his chance to move into Fintry. He doesn't pussyfoot around.
Not at all. He moves in right away. He calls on his cousin, who lives in South Africa, a young man. Dunwaters at this time is 43 years old, hasn't got an heir, and doesn't look like he's going to have an heir. So he gets in touch with his cousin, and he says, come out from South Africa and be my manager, and you can build your inheritance out here in the Okanagan. So Godwin comes with his wife and daughter, and is used to using black labor in South Africa, and ends up hiring a lot of Japanese and Chinese and other Orientals to help build the estate. By build the estate, they took water from the Shorts Creek Falls, built flumes, trestle bridges, and brought it all the way down to the delta so they could have pressurized irrigation. They planted trees everywhere. They had 5,000 trees by the time they were finished on that property. Their production on the property was amazing. They could produce a boxed carload of apples a day during the picking season, 22,000 pounds of apples. So they had 5,000 trees out there. Many varieties we don't have any longer.
Remarkable. I mean, there's a picture of him with a bulldozer. I would not think that this thing had been invented at this stage, but how did he get it here?
A steam-driven bulldozer by barge and by rail car. He acquired property voraciously once he moved in here. He only had 126. He picked up district lot next to him. He picked up the Bruce Landing property. He picked up the Attenborough property 4 miles above Fintry in the high farm area, he called it. So by the time he was finished, in a matter of 2 or 3 years, he'd acquired 3,000 acres.
And he hadn't even built the mansion yet, had he?
No, he was living a very rustic life in tents and in the old Dundas farmhouse. And he decided about that time that he was going to build himself a house that was fitting to his stature, and he was going to call it Fintry proper.
Fintry proper, a real mansion,
a real
stone mansion.
From granite quarried right on the property.
Remarkable. He, in addition to doing all of this, he had continued his hunting. There are some great characters in here. Hercules Love.
Hercules Love, yes. Hercule Love was a Civil War veteran who had a gold mine on the Fintry property, and he lived up Shorts Creek a few miles. And we have some small anecdotes about the Laird, Dunwaters, and Love trading stories about the hunting in the area. But Love was also a really fascinating character. At 70, he was driving 150-foot tunnels by hand in the hard bedrock of the area. Real fascinating.
Perfect character for Dunwaters to, you know,
identify with.
1914 comes along, and Dunwaters, he's off hunting in Alaska.
He goes up to Alaska because he he's never been that far north, and he decides he wants to do some hunting for caribou and that sort of thing. And while he's there, he hears about the Great War breaking out in Europe. And he rushes back to Fintry, and he gives directions to his cousin about what he wants to see happen during the war. A lot of the workers, also Scots, left immediately to go back to England to participate in defending the empire, and Dunwaters was no different. He was a little old, but he was no different.
How old is he now?
53 years old.
53 he goes back.
Yes.
Well, did they take him back into the army at 53?
Well, he had money, so he managed to buy himself a commission as a lieutenant in the Middlesex Yeomanry. And basically, the army let him train the troops.
So he was a trainer of soldiers.
That's right.
But that wasn't satisfying enough to him. He had to get into action.
Well, he saw training duty in France, he saw training duty in Italy, but then he served a very short time in the assault on Gallipoli, at which point he was wounded, shot. On the one day that he was out, he got shot, and that was his last day of action.
And so obviously, as a wounded veteran, this is how he attains perhaps his rank.
Well, he got himself the Silver Star for his injury, but the Silver Star was not usually given to officers. But he managed to get one somehow, and that created a bit of animosity amongst the officer corps, the public school boy officer corps that he was with, and he was decommissioned almost immediately thereafter and given the rank of captain. And that's how he acquired his name, from one day of action at Gallipoli.
He decamps to Egypt, northern Egypt, Alexandria, where he has another sort of whimsical thought.
Well, he saw the horrendous injury of the British soldiers and the Aussie soldiers and the Canadian soldiers in the war, particularly around Gallipoli, and he decided that he was going to try and help out and continue to help out in his own way. So he self-funded what he called a hospital, which was basically a series of burr huts on the sand that the soldiers could come in and recuperate in. It was far from a hospital, but he and his wife and her companion ran the hospital until the end of the war.
Now, his wife, had she been sort of long-suffering in England or in Scotland while he'd been out in Canada doing his thing?
Oh yeah, she wasn't with him in the early stages when he first came to Fintry. He was trying to prepare the property a bit for her before that happened.
And she is?
Alice Ord.
And her companion is?
Katie Stewart.
Now, the war ends, and Alice hasn't seen Fintry yet, but she's going to.
1919, he leaves. He sells all of his ownership in the Outram Press. He's got all of his money from his property that he sold there. And with all of that cash, he moves lock, stock, and barrel, wife and companion, furniture and dogs to Fintry.
And does she like it?
It's a garden place. He's had the Fintry proper built. It's a beautiful stone mansion. She enjoys the area too, and she gets immediately involved in the gardening aspects of beautifying the grounds around the property. And they import all sorts of flowers, all sorts of plants and trees to beautify that garden. So she becomes basically the grand dame of Fintry.
And on his return, how do things go upon his return? And how much money is this worth, by the way? And in terms we can understand, when he sells off his newspaper and sells off his lands, what kind of cash is he running around with?
He's a multi-millionaire. He's very wealthy. He's so wealthy that he rubs shoulders with the heir apparent to the throne of England. I mean, he's not a
nobility.
He's not an aristocrat, but he certainly rubs shoulders with those kinds of people. As much as I've tried, I can't find exactly how much money he did have, but he did say that he spent all of the money he had on Fintry. And he says he's put in $3 million in 19 dollars into the property, which would be, if you indexed it today, which would be well over $50–60 million.
Take a break here. We're going to come back in a moment because this guy is a character in many ways, and we're going to talk about that and talk about the remarkable end of Fintry, not that it's even ended now, when we come back from this break.
Mr. McTavish, being the Scottish curling champion that you are, What would you be willing to wager on the game this fine Fintry day?
A wager, is it? You're over your head this time, Dunwaters.
Welcome back to Okanagan Pioneers and Places. Mike Roberts with Stan Sauerwein talking about the Laird of Fintry, James Dunwaters. He comes back after the war and discovers that Godwin has not been the ideal manager.
No, the property's not doing what it was supposed to be doing, and the local population is very unhappy about the racist way he's been treating these Orientals. So he decides that he wants to get rid of Godwin, and he pays him $40,000, which is equivalent to about $400,000 in today's money, to go away.
Just to leave.
And he hires himself two brothers, the Pym brothers. Now, the Pym brothers are fine, but one is more attracted to women than he is to farm animals, and the other is got a companion in the bottle. The property goes downhill fast. $50,000 loss in 1 year, equivalent to about $500,000 in losses in 1 year. So he fires them, and he hires Angus Gray. 1924, Angus Gray comes. He's going to spend the next quarter century as the manager of the property.
These gloves actually are Angus Gray's gloves. Now, what is remarkable about the gloves and the story behind them?
Well, in the future of his time there at Fintry, Gray rescues Dunwaters from a fire in the boathouse and badly burns his arms and his hands, and he's required to wear the gloves in order to do farm work from that day forward. So he spends about half of his time at Fintry wearing the gloves.
All right. So, and he serves him for 25 years.
24 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
At this time, of course, Dunwaters has all his dreams that have to come about now. He wants Fintry to be the ideal community.
It's the beauty of the Okanagan. He's still hunting a lot, but he's not hunting as much as he used to because he's getting older. So he decides that he's going to take up the other roaring, the roaring sport again that he had in Scotland. So he takes up curling.
We have a couple of curling rocks here that he appropriated from the Scottish curler.
The Scottish champion came over on a tour and he said, if anybody can beat me, you can have my rocks. Well, the Laird sat down and in a couple of games that weekend beat him. And he inherited the rocks off the champion.
And they have sterling silver handles and a place for the crest on the handle.
Yeah, they're beautiful rocks, very, very, very beautiful rocks.
Well done. He had the curling rink right at Fintry. Was it on the lake?
At first he flooded water around Burnside, which is right at the mouth of the Shorts Creek. But they enjoyed themselves so much that they built a 2-sheet rink near the octagonal barn.
And pebbled in the whole thing with rings and the whole Magilla?
The whole thing, the whole Magilla.
And he had all sorts of other sports that he had at the Fintry.
To give his guests things to do, he had a driving range, he had tennis courts, he did lawn bowling. You have to remember, Fintry was the show place in the Okanagan, and he kept it that way.
Now, he had a launch, the launch that Gray saved him from. Was that what he used to transport people from Vernon or Kelowna?
Yes, or they'd come on the old West Side Road, down the windy road, up to Fintry from Kelowna, or from the other direction, from the train.
So he had a launch and he had all the sports activities. His cattle were famous the world over.
He started bringing in Ayrshires from Scotland, and the Ayrshires held national records for their production. The bulls were internationally recognized sires for the Ayrshire breed. He gave them away at the Armstrong Fair. There are pictures of him leading the Ayrshires into the fair with bagpipes behind him. He was very famous with that. He set up the UBC Farm School with Ayrshires. He did all sorts of things with the Ayrshires.
The trophies that we have on the set here, 2 of the trophies that he won for his Ayrshire cattle.
Ayrshire cattle. He brought them over from Scotland, the best bred, the titled, the pedigreed Ayrshires. He brought them over from Scotland and basically gave them away to farmers in British Columbia to try and perpetuate the breed.
He was a character, though. I mean, he liked to remain remote from the men, from the staff, but he would sneak in there occasionally.
He loved to wear dungarees with rope belts and get in and work with the workers. There's one occasion where he was working with ditch diggers and they were down, and this old man is digging along with them, and they're complaining about the owner of the property. And Gray comes along and asks them for some information for a decision on the property, and they of course find out that they've been digging with the owner all this time.
And been slagging his salaries. And
that's right. But he was a very prim, proper kind of fellow. He kept the gardens beautiful. He required the herdsmen to wear whites when they were milking the Ayrshires. He insisted that they walked on paths not through the orchard but around the orchard. he would fire men for not following the rules.
He would weed other people's gardens and leave the weeds on their doorstep as a sort of an admonition.
He could take on a very pedantic role and be very aristocratic and also be very friendly and low. He walked a lot, and he went to Vernon on one occasion and stopped off and wanted to have a meal, and the farm lady thought him a hobo, and she said, you have to chop the wood in the back in order to get a meal. So he's out there chopping the wood, and the son comes out, and he gives the son $2 silver, and the son goes running in to show his mom and comes back out, and the laird says, well, what did she say? Well, you can stay for tea and supper too if you like.
But he liked to maintain his anonymity. And what about his wife now? His wife, Alice Ord, love of his life, died.
She passed away in 1924, and he buried her in the garden. And he had a lot of trouble with himself for a period of time after that. But he had Alice Ord's companion there to keep him company, and he moved in with Alice Ord's companion almost immediately.
This is Katie.
This is Katie.
And she was his lifelong love after that, even though he married another woman. That must have torn it.
When he was when he was 61, he went to Vancouver to deal with his broker, and he met a 22-year-old woman named Margaret Menzies, and he decided to marry her, and he brought her back with him. In fact, they had their honeymoon on horseback in the hills behind Fintry. But Katie didn't take too well to it. They didn't speak to each other for quite some time.
But his wife, his second wife, couldn't live with him at this location, so he
decided to build her a house in Kelowna, and that's where she lived. So he lived in Fintry proper and would walk over for tea every day, spend time with Katie, sometimes spending the evening there as well.
Now, he is an elderly man, and in 1939 he discovers he has prostate cancer.
And he realizes that he's not going to have an heir. He tries to sell the property but can't find a buyer. The 30s, there wasn't that kind of money around. So he decides he's going to give it away, and he gave it away for $1 to the Prince of Wales Fairbridge Farm School for Boys, which was a school set up for boys and girls who were orphaned to teach them a trade in Canada and give them a future in Canada as immigrants.
And he dies, and his ashes are scattered somewhere at Fintry, but the property...
The day he died, they carted him out. He died at noon. They carted him downstairs, threw him in the back of a pickup truck, covered him up with a black tarp, and drove him away. He was cremated in Vancouver, and Katie scattered his ashes somewhere, no one knows.
Just an amazing story. And the whole story of Fintry, there's just the property, because it preceded Dunwaters, and it's got a whole history after him.
She was a maiden. She's a maiden that's never been conquered by any aristocrat or anyone else. Now the BC government's got her. We'll see what they do with her.
Stan Sauerwein, thank you very much for bringing the story to us. Maybe an encore about the property itself next time, okay?
Pleasure, you bet.
Excellent. Stan Sauerwein has written the book on the Laird of Fintry, and he's our storyteller for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us on Okanagan Pioneers and Places.